Alrighty. It's Thursday, which means let's see if Twitch is running. There it goes. Okay, we got our chat up, and we got these up, and I'm gonna actually, you know what? I'm gonna start with Photoshop. Let's talk about Photoshop CC 2018. Oh, whoa. So, let me drop this down. Actually, give me a second. I've got a new keyboard and the Windows key doesn't seem to be working too good. Come on, man. Like, of all the things. There we go. Hey, everybody. Thanks for showing up. Let's see. I need to fit this Photoshop window. I think the last time I used Photoshop, I had fully extended it. So let's go ahead and fit Photoshop right here. All right, so we got CC 2018, and what I'm going to be looking at now is we're going to go to the Windows brushes. So we got brushes and brush settings here. So in case you didn't know, if you've got CC 2018 and you go into all of these things, you know what else I'm going to do? I'm going to see if I can go to extensions, brush eraser. And I'm actually going to start over because I don't need all these. I'm going to go into Alt tap this thing, select all these, and then just delete them. Okay, so I got a fresh brush eraser here. And even in these, if you go over here to brushes, brush settings, no, brushes, and then let's see. Restore default brushes. I'm just going to throw these down here. So I guess these ones I don't need anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those brushes here. Brushes, let's go to the preset manager just in case. Okay, so yeah, we're back down to just these are the default brushes that come with ZBrush, or come with Photoshop now. And you go to the general brushes and they look like that. And then the dry media brushes are full of this Kyle stuff. So Kyle T, the Gumroad brush guy. I don't know how better to explain him. You know what? I also need a Wacom tablet. Oh, come on, Wacom. Plug it in. There we go. And you know what? I probably also need to map it. Whack 'em. Let's see. I guess you guys don't need to see that. Portion. Perfect. Okay, so you got a bunch of these type of brushes in here. Also, what you should know is if you go in here under brushes and you go to get more brushes, there is a whole ton of brushes in here you can just download from Kyle T. Webster. Not from him. I guess he works for Adobe now. So they have his brushes now. So I'm going to go ahead and just download all these. Dry media, sure. Manga brushes, those look cool. And then impressionist, sure. Letters, sure. Halftones, sure. Copier, okay. Concept, all right. Art markers, you bet. All right, so we got all those. Let me pop those into a folder real quick. So here's all my downloads, and then here is, let me just go to my documents, I suppose, Adobe. I'm going to throw these in here. Documents, Adobe. I'm going to make a new folder and call these brush sets. I'm just going to move these in here. So now that I have Photoshop open, and I have, I'm not going to leave this brushes open as well. So if I want my art markers, all I got to do is double click art markers and it throws it in here. And then it's going to be, you know what, let's do all this really quickly. Let's move this over. So art markers, concept, copier, cross hatch, dry media, gouache, halftone, screen tones, impressionist, letters, manga, mega pack, rakes, or any inkers, splatter brushes, watercolor. Now I have all of these sets, so I can open up art markers, for example, and I've got all these art markers. I like to use Brush Eraser. That's something else you can find on Gumroad. There's probably new brush organizational methods within here, but like I said, I like Brush Eraser. Gives me a lot of different options here. So let's go ahead and go to File, New. 1200 by 1200 is fine. Actually, you know what? Let's make that a little bit bigger because I'm sure these artists like to work at very large sizes here. So let's go to image size. Let's make this like oops. Don't need to constrain it. There we go. Control minus back that out. Okay, so now we got this. You know what? I used to be able to hit F and it would just stay within that window. Guess not. Okay, so we've got all these brushes open on here. I'm going to go ahead and move this over a little bit. And then we got Brush Eraser here. So the cool thing about Brush Eraser is I can go ahead and if I hit D, go to default, and then we make a new layer here, and we can also probably stretch this window out. You know what? We'll put Brush Eraser over here. Normally I would just throw this window not in my screen, but since I have to fit within this 1920 by 1080 viewport, that's where I am. So we're under art markers here, so we can just select some of these, and we can start playing with them. For some reason, in Windows 10 and 2018, not on my laptop because I think I had that Photoshop Ink fix, but on this workstation I don't, so it's not letting me resize my brush by holding down Alt, which is really awesome. Thanks Windows and Photoshop and Adobe. Y'all really got that figured out. And Wacom drivers, I blame all three of you equally. So you can go through here and you can test out these markers here. These art markers. There's some really cool ones in here, like these halftones. And some of these things are also in the dry media, wet media, I think under maybe special effects brushes. Yeah, there's like a halftone in here. So whenever I saw this halftone one, it reminded me of Tony Leonard. I was like, oh yeah, there's halftone. Now I can do halftone like a champion. So, and that's also, you can download the halftone one and load those up, and then you'll have, you got screen tones here. Cool. And halftones. And there's the manga brushes have cool stuff in here as well. So anyway, figured I'd bring that up in case you guys haven't played with that. But for for the Brush Eraser stuff, if you wanted to, you could go in here, and I've done the Brush Eraser stuff before. It's been a while, but maybe I'll do a real Brush Eraser thing. But for instance, if I wanted to look at these art markers, and I'm going through here, I'm kind of playing with them. I'm like, ooh, that one feels really nice. I'm going to go ahead and turn on this thick to thin here. It doesn't seem to be working for that one. So this little button up here, you should be able to turn on. And for any brush, even if it doesn't have pressure sensitivity built in, it'll go ahead and turn that on. Let's check this chisel brush out. Yeah, I like that one. So it's like, okay, I like, oh man, let's get warmed up. It's actually really cold here again in old Austin. So getting warmed up here. It's like, okay, I like this one. So what I can do is with that one selected, I can right click in here. We can go to add from active tool, and we'll say last active brush. It goes ahead and captures everything that I need. I don't need Kyle's AM40 chisel. I can just say, let's say 40 chisel. You can say it's that you want it to look like a text button, auto stroke, auto tip, custom image. You can give it a color if you want. So if like all of your art markers, you want to be one color, you can choose one of these colors. You can do custom. Let's say all of my art markers, I want to be green. Or all of my special effects brushes, or all of my wet brushes, or all of my ink brushes, or all of my pencils, they can be a different color. Or you can do a custom image for each one of them, or you can show the tip, the auto stroke, or the text button, whatever you want. So we can just hit finish. And then I'll go ahead and pop this over here in Brush Eraser, so you can tap Alt, and then you can just move this thing around. And now whenever you want to select that brush, you're over here playing with these brushes, and then you're like, you know what, I want that 40 chisel, just tap it. And then you can throw actions in here, and you'll be back to wherever you started. So anyway, just wanted to go over some brush stuff real quick. Capitolo says, any clue on gizmo position? I got all sorts of clues on gizmo position. I don't know what that means. I would say if you want to know a lot about the gizmo, go to this playlist here and check out the ZBrush 408 What's New, and the first 5 videos are all on gizmos. My Mike Ben says, is it true that you pack UV shells for a living? Seems like such a waste of your abilities, or is there some hidden awesomeness in UV packing? I haven't packed a UV in years, so we should have more stuff of that coming up with Houdini soon. Houdini has amazing UV packing, and they do it all for me. Cool. Thanks for showing up, Mike May. Oh yeah. So they do have smoothing in here, which is interesting. So you can like kind of do like a lazy stroke kind of smoothing. I also heard they had symmetry finally. I haven't dived deep into this stuff just yet. Some of these brushes though, if we go over here to the wet media brushes, there's some really interesting stuff. Like you got load and mix and wet stuff. I haven't really played in Photoshop in a long time as far as like, you know, really getting in there and kind of playing around with mixing and erasers and blenders and stuff like that. Here's an impressionistic blender. It's kind of neat. Special effects brushes. But anyways, go through some of these. I'm sure they're all great. And I'm certainly not the one to really walk you through this because I'm not much of a Photoshop guy. Here's a nice little blender. Just blend it a little bit. Blend it up. Interesting. Yeah, so anyway, check that out. It's fun. And also Brush Raider. Brush Raider is good too. So yeah, whenever you're done messing with your brush, you can knock that down and then just have this Brush Raider window anywhere you want. Of course, on this screen, I've got to shove it in here, or you can stack it in here so now you have it, you know, docked if you need it. And then you can do, like I said, you can do action scripts and stuff, so you can record an action script and then throw it in here. So if you do a lot of like flipping horizontally or vertically or layer weird stuff, and you can just throw it right in there. And it's always available to you, and you don't have to sit there and memorize tons of hotkeys or, you know, have brush presets in a big long list like that. You can also put these into different tabs. Whoa. So if I go manage shelves, we can say shelves, import shelves, new shelf. We'll call this test. And now we have a new shelf, and I think somewhere in here we have brushes, and then we have test, and then also what I like to do is I think maybe under settings here, show shelves as tabs. So now I can just go through these different tabs and go to brushes and tests, and it'll remember your window size, so I guess I need to stretch that back out. So it keeps collapsing on me. I think this is the new one. I'll have to check it out. Anyway, I thought that was fun. Yeah, it only took him 12 years to do it. There's a lot of drawing stuff in Photoshop that I am consistently surprised at. Stuff that Corel Painter and even Adobe Sketch and Infinite Painter and stuff have had. They have radial capabilities to draw and symmetry and all the flipping. It's much more robust. In Photoshop, they're like, who cares? Sorry if I get lost, and I always say this, but you guys should be used to it now. But if I get lost in the comments, just keep shouting out. They come in fast and furious. Sometimes I get a little bit backed up. I ask for move the mesh on gizmo position. Oh, where if you want to like snap, let's go back to ZBrush here. So we have a sphere, edit, make polymesh 3D. And then we also have a cylinder, and you want to, I vaguely remember, like if you want to like move this thing to a point on this mesh. Let me think. Well, first of all, they have to be one mesh, so they have some semblance. And then if you want to move this over, I guess you can mask this one, and then you can move it, but then how do you snap this gizmo position? or this object to that gizmo position. So if we alt tap where that gizmo is going to go, and then we hit reset mesh orientation, move to home, that just moves the gizmos. They're just gizmo operators. Yes, it would be nice to go, hey, this gizmo position right here, take the bounding box of this or the center of this object and snap it to there. Or the ability to like say, hey, I want that piece to go to that piece. Button. Boop. Snap. That'd be really cool. You know what? One thing you can do. Let's see if I remember where this is. Okay. Boy, this goes way back. Transpose. Contact. There's contacts here. I don't remember how they work. Stores first contact. Hold down control. C1 button will establish a first contact point that ZBrush will use to maintain distance. Contact points. I don't know. Maybe you could use like a transpose line so you can go in here with transpose. This would be a good Joseph Drust, Paul Gabry question. Like maybe there's something weird with transpose or contacts that you could use to snap stuff. Maybe. I'd have to think about that one. You ever use 3D in Photoshop? You know, I have accidentally used 3D in Photoshop where I double click an OBJ and it opens in Photoshop automatically, and I'm like, whoa, what's all this? And but I haven't actually done anything serious in it. But I've heard good things. You could have live symmetry in Photoshop by using a 3D plane and mapping the UVs flipped along the axis on it. Yes. That sounds like a hassle, though. Cool. Can you teach me how to make hair using hair cards and ZBrush using texture map transparency? Can you show it? Thank you. I've already done that, and hair is incredibly boring for a live stream. I hate to admit it. But if you go to this link I'm about to send you, actually you can go to this Pavlovich workshop. I go over a ton of hair stuff. And again, my suggestion for hair is to hire someone else to do it, because hair sucks. So you can take this video right here, and you can do all sorts of hair techniques, from eyelashes and curve brushes and eyebrows and making a hair brush for hair cards. I would say what I would normally do, and you can use fiber mesh as well for hair cards, and then you can make a hair card brush, and then you can make all sorts of hair stuff you can do. For hair brushes with UVs and transparency, you're probably going to need to use fiber mesh in ZBrush. That's just kind of the deal. However, I would end up using these hair cards along with a tool in Maya called Geo to Maya Hair. Of course, it's been like years since I've had to do hair, and I'm not looking forward to doing it again. So there might be better techniques out there with XGen and Maya Hair tools, or I don't know. I would just do ZBrush just to get my preliminary. Actually, I'll probably show you guys an infographic here. Let me see if I can load that up. I know where this is. Give me a second. I should just keep this handy. Let me see, drafts. Oh, you know what? I think it is on my, hold on. There we go. There it is. Okay. So in ZBrush, you make these hair cards, or you put out a braid or something, or you do a Celtic knot braid. What you can then do with this mesh is you can go the cinematic route, and you can go into Geo to Maya Hair, and you can go root to tip, and it'll pass these curves along those cards or along these strands, so that you can just pass these curves down these shapes, and then you get nice looking braided hair or nice looking hair in general. Or you can go to the game res route, and you can turn those into more hair cards, and you can dial in parameters for those. While you're doing that, you can also lay out strips and have hair go down those strips and then bake those strips out to these cards. Or you can take these strips, make them into more strips, and then you can come back up here, make those into curves, and then turn that into just rendered hair. Or you can just stay in game res and then just bake these out to this hair, and then you'll get game res baked hair. That would be my suggestion for hair, but like I said before, like if you guys sat there and watched me do hair, it would be 10 to 12 hours of you being real bored. You could. John says you could use insert mesh to snap, maybe the gizmo thing. Yeah, that would. So if I in real life, if I wanted to be like, oh, I want to put a cylinder or any sort of mesh on this point right here, I would just do this. Yay, it snapped. So if you did have something in particular, like let's say you had something weird. And when I think of weird, I gotta go to this guy. So I've got something weird in here. Let's go ahead and split mass points. So I've got this guy here, and I want to snap him to the top of that box. It seems like I should be able to go, hey, I want to move his feet onto this box. And, of course you could just with Gizmo. But if you wanted to snap him, you could go, okay, I'm going to draw. Hold on, let me reset this guy here. Yoink. So I can go brush. Actually, solo, yeah. Brush, create insert mesh, new. And then, yeah, if you want to snap anything, it would just be a matter of, I want to snap him here. Well, you can just snap him right on top of there. I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but for sure. That's probably how I would be snapping things to surfaces, because I could just have a whole, like for instance, brush insert BI industrial parts. And it's like, instead of going over here and I'm like, okay, I have a screw. Let me see. Split mass points here. Let's delete these. Split mass points. Okay, so let's say like something in Maya where I would have, something sitting off into space with 3D Studio Max, and you can pull these things in from libraries. You have a little window over here, and it'll be like, okay, you got this library, and they can drag it onto your surface. But if I did have this thing over here, and I'm like, okay, I've got a gizmo, and I want to snap this thing all over this mesh. So how do I do that? In that case, I would probably be more inclined to be like, you know what, just make an insert mesh brush out of all that stuff, and now you can just snap willy-nilly, or you can hold down control like so. Or you can go to make it all the same size, or you can go, let's go to modifiers here, and we'll go to multi-mesh selector. So now you can just like snap things all day long. You don't have to worry about snapping it to a surface. You don't have to be like click, click, snap, click, click, snap, click, click, snap, click, click, snap. That's not very conducive to a fast workflow. Another thing I would also consider, and let's go delete that, is if you wanted to snap these things, cylinder 3D, polymesh 3D here, I would use nanomesh probably. So nanomesh here. So if we have this brush selected, we can go to brush, create, nanomesh brush. And now these things are all nanomesh brushes I can select. So through here, if we want to go to, let's go ahead and do a quick group by normals, isolate this top one here, we'll delete hidden. And now we can do like a polygroup checker. So we can do, and we'll do all. So now we have checkers on here. So now on these pink ones here, we can go to insert nanomesh, polygroup all. And on this one, we could put in, say, let's also go to that brush here. We'll go back to, okay. We'll put a nut on those. So we'll just put nuts on those pink areas. And that way we can use nanomesh. If for any reason I wanted to change the properties of that, I can go in here to my nanomesh. And this just allows me to change these properties on the fly. Makes it a little bit easier. Also, what you could do, actually, let's hit Control W and you can go through here and you could just Alt tap these, and then when you drag them out, that's where the nano mesh brush will go. And if you ever want to swap these things out, you can go into Edit Mesh, and you can hit W, and he's like, I want a bolt head. Okay, and then go out of Edit Mesh, and now you've got a bolt head on here, and now you got to go in here to size and make these sizes and offsets work for you. But at least you can swap all of these pieces out at once instead of going, oh, I snapped 40 screws to this thing, and now I want them to all be bolts. Well, instead of doing that, you can just swap them out. Alternatively, if you have, and we've gone over this before, but if you have a character here, you know what, let's see if I have a version of her, since I found all my old files. Let's see, date modified, details, 04. Because I have a version of her where I have this already set up. It's not difficult, it's just basically putting in a bunch of polyplanes on the suit here. So all of these screws right here, have these been converted yet? Yeah, these are all nano mesh. So if I go to show placement, you're going to see, let me turn nano mesh off. You're going to see all I have on her is a bunch of cards. So I put cards where I want those little bolts to be. And then when I turn nano mesh on, you're going to see those cards turn into instances of a bolt or a little screw, and then I turn off show placement, and then the cards disappear. And now I've got these screws all over the place. So if at any point, again, I want to swap these things out with a different mesh, all I have to do is go into Edit Mesh here, the solo, and now I can go through here, and I can say, you know what, I wish this thing had a little divot in it. So we go to Insert Single Edge Loop with my Z-Modeler brush, bevel, edge loop complete, and then we can go to Q Mesh, Polygroup All, pull that in. It's like, okay, that's much better. That's what I really wanted. Go out of Edit Mesh, and now all of these little things have been updated to include that little cut-in. In that way, if I wanted to make changes, I don't have to go, oh, I want to include that little cut-in. Now let me go through this entire character again and snap a stupid object to all these different locations. Or if you want to completely swap it out, let's see if this will work. We can go to Edit Mesh, and we can go to row parts here, hit W, and then you can just swap it out with any of these. Now because it's changing the orientation on these, let's see if we can just make that work compatible with mine, and maybe even scale it up a little bit. Okay, so we go in out of Edit Mesh here, and so now they're a little bit smaller here, so we'll just go to proportional, or we'll just go to size, and also the Y offsets. 0. Okay, so now we've swapped all of those bolts out with Phillips head screw, and now you can go through here and you can change the size if you need to. Once you have that all set up, then you can go in here, back in here to Edit Mesh, and you can go, you know what? Turns out I want these things here. We want to do an inset poly, and then Q Mesh, or you know what? We'll go the opposite way. Poke these out. Okay, that's what I really wanted. Go out of Edit Mesh, and now those have been updated to look like that. So instead of snapping a whole bunch, also there's a lot of really interesting things you can do even with nano mesh here. So if we go to like a cube 3D, you know what? We don't even need a cube. We'll just go to initialize cube. We'll go 1 res, and just to make it ZBrush size, we'll go deformation unify. And then we can go to back to our nanomesh brush we made, and make sure we go to brush, hover over face, insert nanomesh polygroup all. That's only, it'll be on the front and the back, that's fine. And we'll go ahead and insert that mesh. And then when we go to our nanomesh properties, we can do change the alignment, distribution, whereas we can do H tile, so we can do like tile it across this way or tile it across this way, so you can just fill it up with this. You can also, instead of doing grid, we can do border, so we can just nano mesh these things along a border. You can do corners. If you just want to put bolts in a corner, you can do that, and you can still have access to how big they are, how offset they are from the surface, any height stuff you want to change. You want to make them a little bit flatter, a little bit narrower, whatever you want to do. And they're still connected to those polygroups, so no matter what happens to this corner, it's going to follow, because again, it is just an instance of that. Recently I've seen a brush in 3D Code. It's called Toothpaste. I wonder if you have something like that in ZBrush. I have no idea what that brush is. I'd have to see it. Remember, so I use a strong, smooth brush that you smooth things quicker than normal. Do you know how to open it up? Yeah. So if we go back to our character here, and we grab her face, go into solo mode, and she's got a lot of resolution. So if you go in here to smooth, which is a smooth brush, it'll smooth, but boy, it'll really take a long time. Ideally, you're working at a resolution where you can smooth it quicker, or you have subdivision history so you can smooth these subdivisions out better. But what I like to do, instead of going into smooth, I'll use smooth stronger, which I have auto-loaded. You guys won't. You can grab that from the comma key, brush, and go to the smooth brushes here. And you can grab smooth stronger in here. If you wanted to, you could also just hold down shift to go to smooth brush and go to the smooth brush modifiers, and you're going to see there is a weighted smooth mode. So all you're doing is setting this weighted smooth mode for the smooth stronger brush to 1. Same thing for like the perpendicular smooth and the crease smooth and the edges smooth. All of those things are just changing this weighted mode. So if you wanted to, you can hold down shift smooth. You can just turn this to 1, and now it's smooth stronger. If you want to save this brush, or if you load up the smooth stronger brush from the comma key, for example, we go in here, double click smooth stronger. So now when you hold down shift, smooth stronger is loaded up. If you always want that to show up every time you load up ZBrush as an option, you go to brush, save as, go to ZBrush 4R8, ZBrushes, no, ZBrush 4R8, Z startup. You can save it in ZBrushes if you wanted to do a variant of the smooth stronger brush that you don't want to pull in all the time. But if you wanted to come into ZBrush every time you open up ZBrush, Z startup, brush presets, and then you can see in here I have smooth stronger saved in there. So whenever I load up ZBrush and I hit the B key, I've got smooth stronger already set up in there. So now I can do smooth stronger, and the cool thing about smooth stronger is I can smooth stronger, but if I don't want to smooth that strong, I can hold down shift, drop that Z intensity down, and then somewhere in this range is regular smooth. So not only do I have regular smooth available to me, I can also go to smooth stronger. So it just gives me a wider range of smoothing as I work. Cool, cool. Elizabeth says, my 3ds have some awesome stuff for hair in terms of plugins, but really expensive. However, if you really need really high-end hair or Natrix and that sort of thing, will be badass. Cool, check that out. Again, I try to avoid hair when I can. I think I have a feeling I'm gonna be doing hair soon, but I'll check that out. Let me write that down. And the only thing I don't like about hair and hair plugins is that when you want to do hair, for example, hold on. Traditionally, I don't know if this has changed, but I remember looking into this. So whenever anybody does a hair tutorial, it's always like, let's make hair. So the hair we're going to make today is going to look like this. It's going to look like Don Draper's hair. The easiest hair in the effing world to make. And then you put your hair cards on like this, or you do a bunch of fibers and then you comb your fibers. And it's like, okay, as long as you only want to make this haircut, this hair method works amazingly. But my problem always was, what if I want to make a Celtic knot of hair? You know, or anything where you have to style it even a little bit becomes a nightmare. Joseph Dress has a good tutorial on breaking up fiber mesh into different polygroups on the head and then balling it up and then combing it out. But even then, that can get a little bit difficult if you want. I mean, I wouldn't try braiding using that method. You know, this method is very easy for braids. All you got to do is make an insert mesh curve brush. So if we go to the comma key here, I think I've had some hair, yeah, we talked about hair stuff, so it's got to be in here. So for this stuff, all you got to do is grab a braid brush. And of course, there you go. And now you've got smaller, there we go. So now you've got braids that you can add to your hair. So you don't have to sit there and like style this. You just got to drag this out and then tell Geotomaya Hair to say, hey, these hair strips follow this geometry from root to tip. And then weave your curves along that pattern, and then I get braided hair. It takes me 5 seconds. Again, there might be better solutions for that nowadays, but I wouldn't know them. Do you have a link to that thing you pulled up with all the braids, etc. for hair baking? I can throw that on the internet. Let's see. Let's see. Let's go to Google Drive. And I'll go to my folder here. And this was in our G2MH. And we'll throw that onto transfer. Last modified, I said. Where is it? Okay, I guess it didn't take. Okay, here it is. So we'll go ahead and do a share. Anyone with the link can view? Sure. There you go. GNA says, "Hi Mike, big fan. What's your fastest process when you're doing hard surface tests?" That's what I was hoping to do today, is actually put a helmet on her. Usually what I'll end up doing is doing a quick sculpt. So if you go here to my YouTube playlists, we'll link you guys. If you scroll down, I got a ton of stuff like on the ZBrush Mech Helmet Concept Sculpt playlist, Concept Sketching. So we go to Concept Sketching here. I usually just block out, if you want to see the making of the GDC female, you know, this goes through that process. I'm just kind of going through, breaking it down, sculpting, refining. Once I get the idea in place of what I want to sculpt, then I'll go through and just do varied methods of rebuilding and stuff here. So like for the chest armor, there's even like I have some commentary on most of these, I think. It's more time-lapsey, but, also, if you go to my ArtStation page, got a message in here. Check that out. Go to my profile, and then go to, I mean, any of these have a breakdown. So if you want to see the Halo Armor stuff, you can go down and scroll down and see, you know, my basic process. This is all changed. This is all fairly dated, but this Commander stuff, it all starts as just getting my idea out quickly, which is the most important thing, because everything else is just technique. If I knew exactly what I wanted to make, then it would be fairly easy just to use a bunch of techniques to kind of make good decisions on how you tackle any individual object. The harder part is, the hell are you going to make and what's cool? So that's where I kind of stay loose. And then once I get this stuff figured, like here's the crappy gun that I made. But this crappy gun only took me a few minutes, and then I was able to use that as a base to, you know, build my other stuff. And when I actually forgot that, is I could pull all these objects in from previous things that I had modeled, insert mesh brushes. So that helped inform a little bit better. I was able to kit bash a little bit on that stuff. Yeah, and then it's just, you know, putting in proxy meshes, making things nice enough, and then going through and, if you want to, Dynamesh, detail, all sorts of crazy stuff. Some of those techniques can be seen in this boot tutorial. This boot tutorial is 18 videos, and it also has a handy little, if we go to the big size here, you can step through this process. And it's like, here's my blobby mesh, and then here's how I break it down and refine it, and then here's how I rebuild it. Here's how I do some fancier tricks for treads and rubber gaskets and shoelaces and stuff like that, and then you have a nice little boot at the end. So a lot of different ways to, but usually I'll start off with just a concept sketch, which in my case would just be a blobby clay brush, just to get my ideas out quickly. And as far as which one's most efficient or fastest, again, if you know exactly what you're going to make, then the most efficient way would just be going, let me turn off solo here. Like if I knew the shoulder pad needed to look exactly like this, then you can just Z model and build it. If I didn't, then I would just sketch it out first and use clip brushes and H dynamic and H polish, trim dynamic and H polish, and insert mesh brushes and kind of feel it out. And once I get this, then I would feel comfortable to go ahead and, rebuild it, use alphas, use insert mesh brushes, crease and dynamic creases and stuff like that. The making of this person in particular is pretty much on my ZBrush channel, my Pixelogic stream. We go through the anatomy and the heads and a little bit of hair stuff, a lot of different techniques, and then sketching her out and building her up, and also taking, we do a lot of different, here's detailing techniques, ornamentation for like this type of stuff, a lot of different, techniques for that stuff. So. Incremental saves in ZBrush. I think your quick save menu is all incremental. So if you go to preferences, quick save, you can say max quick save files. You can crank this up to like 100, and then it'll incrementally save your projects up to 100. Could you make a tutorial for base mesh? As far as just like humans, if you go to my Pixelogic channel, we go over base mesh creation here, and on my channel, if we go to the live stream highlights or live stream full episodes, and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you're going to see here's base mesh creation for this guy. And even more recently, we've done, and I'm going to split out these into live stream highlights as well, but we've done base mesh creation for like streaming, old man, we got Chops McGee in here, remeshed. So we did a little bit of base mesh creation on this guy. So if we go back down to subdivision level 4, turn on polyframe. Did we lose his polyframes here? Oh, we baked out a texture, sorry. That's what's obfuscating that. There we go. So making a base mesh, just sculpting up a base mesh with this guy, and then making nice groups for him and a mouth bag in here so we can open his mouth and stuff. So to go in here, like, actually we can just, let's hold on, let's go down to our lowest subdivision level here, and we'll hit W, hold down Control, we'll mask all that out. And in fact, we can just hold down Control, let's go to Mask Lasso, and I just want to rotate his lower jaw, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll mask kind of this area here. And then we'll hold down Control Tap to blur this, and then we can set this pivot wherever he's going to be pivoting from. Probably a little bit forward. And you can actually save that as a layer too. So before you do that, we'll go ahead and go to Layers, New. Oh, we have to be highest. Okay. New layer, and then we can, now yeah, I would probably maybe do these before I do that. So now we've recorded that into a layer. So now if I want to see this layer on or off, you can go through here and be like, if you want to overcrank it, you can do this bottom one down here and you go, whoa. So you can overcrank that. So you can do that for kind of like a blend shape method. Now these are linear interpolations, so that draw is just going to go straight down. So if you wanted to do arcs for eyelids and stuff, you might have to do multiple layers, or just kind of deal with the fact that it's going to be a linear interpolation. It's going to go point A to point B. But like so. I like that. And then you can also just undo all that or bake all that down so you don't have to deal with layers if you're not ready for that. Yeah, and we've also, like for medieval armor and stuff, live stream highlights, I've got some of that out. So if you just scroll down here, you're going to see modeling stylized shoulder pads and making a stylized helmet. Rendering stylized shoulder pads and helmet. Using ZBrush for hard surface game res. And also in here, the Sci-Fi Pistol series will basically walk you through the making of this ZBrush 4R8 gun. Let's go down here. You know, this thing here, this gun, we go through the making of this, all these little hard edge pieces. I mean, we don't go through exhaustively and make every single one of them, but we go through the techniques and how to make most of these things. And then we throw it into, we go from ZBrush to Painter, and then we render it all out, and then go into like normal stamping detail and stuff. I'm trying to think what other resources I have, because it's all in here. I need to sit down and do a proper video so that we can, I can just throw that up on Gumroad and call it a day. That'll be a little bit more. You'll have to go and hunt and peck for all these different things. Yeah, hard surface, hard surface, hard surface. Also, just recently, and this is some of the full episode stuff. I need to go back through the highlights, but I think this like last stream we went through and did like, here's an armored chest plate that you can make, and if you want to capture muscle, here's a couple different ways to capture muscle onto that chest plate. Here's how you can detail that chest plate out, and here's how you make straps for that chest plate, and here's how you make an alpha for, jeans or something like that. So a lot of good stuff in there. It's just not super organized. You know how I can make a layered rusty pipe looking something like that? Yeah. Probably a lot of surface noise, but it's going to be super destructive. If I were to make a rusty pipe with chips and stuff coming off of it, I would definitely do that non-destructively in Substance Painter. I know that's not a great answer for your question, but just realistically, if I want to make a rusty pipe, let's load that up. Because the problem with making a rusty pipe in ZBrush is if you ever want to make changes to the depth of the rust or the type of rust or how rusty it is or where the rust is coming from, you're going to have to go back to your high-res source and change it, and then go all the way through the baking process, and then hope that your masks are clean, and then it's just a nightmare production-wise. So let's see what happened to Painter. Oh, how is it not? Oh, come on. Okay, I guess I'm going to evaluate this product. Okay, never mind. Well, I can't show you Painter because apparently I need to upgrade my license. Oh, okay, I'll do that this morning too. Yay. Although I'm pretty sure I already did that. I'll have to look at that. Anyway, go through here and you can see how easy it is just to throw on a rusty Decimate Painter, yeah, base mats. So you can just throw on a rusty material in here and then just dial in the rust and paint the rust or spray the rust on there on a layer and make it thicker or thinner. All sorts of cool stuff. If I wanted to make this guy rusty, it would be like, and just to make this, let's go and delete lower. It would be like, okay, let me save a layer of this and also go to a morph target, store a morph target, and then we'll go to surface, noise, and we can change the scale of that surface noise. Break this up a little bit. Apply the mesh. And you could also, let's go ahead and switch that, and I'm going to duplicate this one. A lot of different ways you could do this. Like you can go in here to now that you've switched it, you can go to B, M, O, and go to your morph brush, and you could just morph back where you want it to be rusty. You can use the layer brush to kind of make paint flaking peely, stuff like that. But again, like just doing that in ZBrush is so destructive. I would be hard pressed to like make anything rusty in ZBrush. Like I could use a layer brush here to kind of build up layers, but of course you have a morph target stored. Let's go ahead and switch that. You also have the layer saved in here, so if you're done recording this, you can go through here and you should be able to knock the noise down or crank it up even more so you can dial in exactly how you want that noise to be. If you're happy with that, you can bake it. And then since you have a morph target stored, you can morph it back. So if you want, or you can switch it and then just morph in where you want that rust to build up. And if you do have multiple, so you've got this one here, so you can build up the rust in here, so then you can use the layer brush on this side. Let's go ahead and delete that morph target, and we'll bake that layer as well. So now we can use the layer brush with like maybe a square alpha, and you can do like paint flaky type stuff, or you can hold down Alt, and you can like dig in like paint flaky stuff here. I guess we can stick with the round alpha too, that'll work. So you can kind of just give it a layered paint flake feel. But again, once you bake that out, you know, and you want to give a different material property to that, you'd have to put a material ID in there, and it's just a nightmare. So yeah, use Painter. Okay, again, if I miss anybody's comments, I apologize. I try to split a figure to parts, hands, legs, and torso. Close holes, always leave something sticking out, bad geometry. Yeah, if you do anything like this, I guess we should drop this geometry down. You know what, let's just dynamesh this guy. Okay, so if you do anything like this, it's like, okay, I want to delete that here, and then I want to close holes. It's not going to close a hole exactly how you wanted. It's going to go through there, and it's just going to interpolate your closed holes here. So I mean, you can isolate this, and you can go back and you can clip it, but that's not ideal. If I wanted to do, or another option you could do, Control Shift, if you want to make a polygroup there, hit the space bar, and now you can just clip, and then it'll leave a thing behind, but it won't be sliced edge, so it'll be kind of a raggedy edge here. Another thing you might consider is holding a Control Shift, going to Slice, and if I want to cut a perfect chunk out of his head, what you can do is you can go, actually, let's hit Control W, make this all in group. So I can go here and here. We can turn groups on with our Dynamesh, and that'll go ahead and give us nice solid chunks. And then if I want to choose do a chunk out of the back of his head that's perfectly square, now I can just turn groups on, hold down Control Shift, and then we can just take this one, delete it, geometry modify topology, delete by type hidden, Dynamesh with groups off, and then it'll just Dynamesh all those pieces together, and now you have a perfect square chunk out of the back of his head. You could also do, if you want to split a mesh up into parts, we went over this last time too, which is, we're on the weapon process here. Live stream full episodes. So the very last one we did, PavWork, you're going to see in here, we went over some key registration things. If you want to use live booleans to just stick a, you know, you can break your meshes up like this with live booleans and make a union mesh, and you can even on either side do key registration for both sides. Then you can build in tolerances as well. Joseph Drest has some like knee joint things you can put in there to go ahead and just drag it onto your knee, and then it'll make perfectly split meshes with a knee joint that you can rotate like a little G.I. Joe thing. You can use that method as well. John says, I tried using the curve tube brush mode frame mesh on an open-ended border, but I only wanted it to affect one edge. You can do a curve on one edge. Let's see if we can do that. Cube 3D, edit, make polymesh 3D. So if you go in here to ZModeler and you hover over an edge and you go to add to curve, where is that at? Add to curve, first one. So you can put a curve along an edge, or if you want to do like maybe 3 in a row. I think the caveat is if you go to brush, curve, tube, we'll just try curve tube here. Yeah, it's only gonna, these segments don't, so you can do on one exact edge. Now if we do a 5 to snapshot that, and then we can do this one, and then a 5 to snapshot that and do this one. You can do all three, but yeah, it's the curve tube's only gonna respect one curve if you use the add edge to curve here. Because that's gonna be curve, 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 as opposed to Curve tube, as opposed to something like open edge border, stroke, functions, frame mesh, and then put a curve tube along there. Alternatively, you could also hit Control W, make that a polygroup, and then as you drag this out, hold down Shift. And I wonder if that needs to be on. No. Is this on as line only? Shouldn't be. Brush, curve, or brush insert, military curve here, bike chain. There we go. So you should be able to hold down Shift over a polygroup and have it also snap to your curve here. So that way you don't have to frame your mesh. But again, yeah, if you just want to do one edge, add an edge to, you know, and I guess we can also, if we grab this one here and we split that off and we say, let's go to initialize Q cube and then deformation unify, and then we add edge to curve and then brush curve tube. Okay, yeah. So if you have long edges, that's probably what you're looking for. Cool. Thanks for the kind words, everybody. Thanks for showing up. Roman says, hey Mike, what if I give you a link where all your tutorials can be found for free? Can I have a few private lessons with you for that? You know what? Even when I first started doing this and put myself up on Gumroad, immediately, there's like 50 different websites where it's all for free. So enjoy those if you'd like. It's easy enough to find, and most of my stuff is for free. Like if you go to my YouTube channel, for example, none of this stuff's paid for. And in fact, most of my Gumroad stuff is free too. That's just a convenience thing for you guys. So you can download it and watch it. And it's a little bit more organized as well. Do you have a favorite Ultimate Polypaint tutorial? Yeah, I don't. Most of my poly painting is color fill for material IDs or mesh IDs. I'd go over poly painting a bit. I mean, in the Intro to ZBrush series, I do go over a lot of poly painting stuff. Also the stylized ZBrush rendering with the ZBrushGuides.com stylized stuff. We go over poly painting. Intro to ZBrush Part 3, we go over a ton of poly painting stuff and rendering in ZBrush and Keyshot. But yeah, I don't tend to paint too much in ZBrush unless it's just kind of a fun thing, like if I want to do a quick poly paint on a head or something. Boy, we messed him up. But yeah. So I have a sphere and I want to squeeze out letters strictly on the surface of the form. There's a few different ways to do that. Let's see, so we can make a polymesh 3D here. If you want to just do it through masking, you can use, so if we want to, we can go to BT, brush transpose, smart transpose, and hit Y to go to transpose mode. And then we can go to our alpha menu here. And do I have, yeah. So if I have a text in an alpha, for instance, we can load that up, and then you can hold that control and drag that text out. Also, and I mean, there's going to be a million ways to do this. I'm just starting with a kind of a this type of thing. So now you can go through here, and you can do inflate, and you can do deflate if you want to. That's a little bit destructive if you would rather do that with booleans. I mean, you could take this text and convert that into geo. You can hit Control W and make it a polygroup and Z-remesh and pull it out. But probably there's also the text tool here under, oh my god, my Wacom wasn't quite getting there. Z plugin, text in 3D, and then we'll say new text. So now we have text here. So you can use this as an insert mesh brush. So you can go to B. Actually, let's see. Let me make sure I have enough resolution. So this resolution here, if I'm trying to wrap it around a surface, isn't going to be enough. So I'm going to turn off adaptive. This font, yeah, I don't know why they choose a font where that doesn't work very well. Let's try Arial. Good old Arial. There we go. So turn adaptive on for Arial, and you know what? I don't want to do Arial black. We'll do regular. There you go. So now we're getting a little bit more resolution. So I can hit B, create insert mesh, new, go back to our sphere. Do we not have a sphere that was a little bit done-ish? I guess not. Make a polymesh 3D, and now when we go to drag this out, you can have this, but it's not going to be wrapped to your mesh. One thing you can do is you can go to BMM, that's your matchmaker brush. You can just use your matchmaker brush to do that. I think you need two subtools here, so we're going to go ahead and do a split mask points. And then with both of these showing, you can use matchmaker to make your text flush with that. Another alternative is you can use your gizmo here and go into like bend arc, and you can just use bend arc to go ahead and bend your text as well. You can also, when you go to brush insert mesh and you're inserting it on, if you want it to wrap automatically, all you got to do is go over here to brush, gosh dang it, modifiers, projection strength, crank it up to 100 or less if you want to, but now when you're projecting it onto, we need to go to the sphere here. Now when you're dragging that out on your sphere, it'll go ahead and just wrap as you're dragging it out on your mesh. And there's probably 5 or 6 other ways to do it, but off the top of my head. And if you want to also, let's go ahead and split hidden. You could turn these into a Boolean, so that now you can see they're kind of cutting in to the mesh here, or you can make them an additive Boolean, and now they'll be just added to the Boolean. So if you did a Boolean operation, it would just go ahead and make nice crispy letters for you. Whoops. Cool. Glad the key things worked out for you. How'd you go about splitting a high-res model to parts like legs, hands, torso still stays nice and contiguous? I mean, the very essence of splitting something apart is going to make it non-contiguous. I'm not sure I understand the question. I have trouble sculpting stuff with deep recessed crevices like butts and cloth folds. Any suggestions? Yeah, that's going to be a ZRemesher thing. Well, for cloth, definitely I would not be sculpting cloth in ZBrush because I'm terrible at it. But what I'm not terrible at is just throwing a piece of cloth on an object in Marvelous Designer. So do your cloth sculpting in Marvelous Designer and then ZRemesh it in ZBrush. For the butts thing, it's kind of like doing a mouth bag and with lips as well. For example, if you wanted like something that comes in, it would have to be basically sphere, edit, make polymesh 3D. It's going to not look great at first because what you're going to do is like dynamesh this thing, and then you're going to go to like maybe a clip rectangle or a Boolean. It's actually, let's turn on X symmetry here. So it's not going to look great at first, but basically what you have to do is kind of start with something like this, so that when you go and you duplicate this off and you go to your ZRemesher properties and you say, I want to do adaptive size down to 0, half target polygon count ZRemesh. I'll go into solo here, and yeah, we don't need to keep that, so we'll just keep going half, 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 half. Okay, that's about good. Let's go ahead and do a project back out to my other mesh that's visible. There we go, project to back all. If you wanted to keep that detail, then you would just, Control D to subdivide your mesh. Let's turn off Dynamesh. And we'll do another project all, Control D, project all, Control D, project all. If you have any errors in here, you can go through and you can do like BZP, that's your Z project brush. Because we have subdivision history, what you're going to want to do is hit X to go across X symmetry, because the Z project brush really does not play nice across X symmetry. We can go ahead and smooth these out, and then we can use Z project brush with Alt held down to Z project, and then let go of Alt to kind of push back in, and that'll clean that up. And then you're going to mask half of your object here, and then you're going to go to your deformation properties and do a quick smart resim across the x-axis. So now we have X symmetry turned on, everything's cleaned up, we have our subdivisions here. And again, that doesn't look nice, but what you do now that you have ZRemesh and it's all separated, now you have geometry here that you can go, you have subdivision history, and now you can do like overlapping parts. Actually, we can just use transpose as well. So now you can have, let's mask all this out. So now these parts can overlap. And it'll be something you can control a little bit better, and you can push these parts back in. In fact, let's go back to subdivision level 1. You could make a polygroup out of there. So just like when we did the mouth bag for Old Chops McGee, we've done that a few times where you make a mouth bag. Same thing for deep folds, is you're going to have to kind of push it in there, leave it apart so you can dynamesh it, and then Z-remesh it, and then take those folds and pull them across. And then because, let's go ahead and turn off X symmetry here. And again, we'll just pull this one up and over. Because you have actual geometry in there, you don't have to worry about like dynameshing this together or anything. You'll just have subdivision history, where now you can have cloth and folds and butt cheeks, you know, overlapping, and not have to worry about, you know, dynamesh or anything. But like I said, clothing and stuff, that's all in Marvelous Designer. Environment stuff, cliffs, rocks, etc. Yeah, if you go to my YouTube channel, there is a, I think it's called Rocks. Yeah, Livestream Rocks. Go to this playlist, and there's a ton of just rock stuff. Also, Pablo Munoz Gomez on ZBrush Guides has a lot of really cool ZBrush 4R8 vector displacement rock stuff, and it's all, you know, you do stylized rocks, stylized cracks. Let's see, resources. You can get 50% off the ZBrush Form material pack here, so there's some rock stuff in here you can check out. Yeah, let's see. I'm not sure if brushes. Oh, brushes. Under brushes here. Yeah, advanced rock brushes. There's a ton of really cool rock stuff in here you can grab. So, like I said, we also go over just basic rock sculpting techniques in the Z Livestream Rocks playlist. Hey, Thunder Bunny. Let's see. Custom menu. Yeah, so if you go to my Gumroad or QBrush page, you scroll all the way down to the bottom. There's an intro to ZBrush files, and that will have installation instructions for, oh, Gumroad is down for maintenance, but when it's back up, intro to ZBrush files is what you're looking for my custom menu and stuff. Yeah, environment stuff. I'm not a huge environment guy. I'm probably get more into that as the tools get better for the game res side of things, and we're really close to making that happen, so soon. Is ZModeler that good when it comes to modeling? So I use the 3D Max Blender. What are ZModeler's advantage over the other programs? All the other programs suck compared to ZModeler. Just kidding. Use whatever you want, doesn't matter. If you extrude a face in 3D Studio Max, you can extrude a face in ZModeler. There's some things that are much easier to do in ZBrush. Polygroups is a huge one for me personally. I can't work on hard surface stuff without the ability to, like, you know, I guess turn off that edge function. If I can't have the ability to just make polygroups or make polygroups by angle, you can do like selection sets in some programs, but this kind of stuff, and bridging is also another huge one in ZBrush, and QMesh. This QMesh brush is a lot more robust. For example, let's go to initialize QCube here. So for example, we can go across X symmetry, or we can do QMesh polygroup all, and we can like pull the stuff through, but then I can use the QMesh brush. Let's go ahead and do this here. Let's go, you know what, we can also do flat island. So all of these selections are really nice and easy. And then we can go through here and QMesh single poly and just pull straight through. I also like the dynamic stuff in ZBrush a little bit better than most programs, because I can go to the, I mean, it's also my custom mesh. I hate going through this shit. Geometry, dynamic subdivisions, and also let's look at crease here. So like the crease level of 2, smooth subdiv of 3 or 4, and now we can get that if I want to tighten those creases up, I can go crease level of 3 and get that a little bit tighter. Or in fact, I can go not smooth subdiv, I can go QGrid, and then coverage here. So if I want to go ahead and just build in a bevel, and it's all just dynamic, so they hit Shift D, it's all just sitting there. I know other programs have this capability as well, but ZBrush is, I like having the ability to do that. But the smooth subdiv and the crease level is something that I don't see a lot, like for this kind of stuff. But for, yeah, the QMesh stuff and like, you know, splitting stuff and bridging stuff, if I want to like bridge connected poly circle, 8 line and normal triangle sides, and just and also the polygroup stuff too. If I go here to group by normals, having the ability to just grab all of these different polygroups and say, okay, now I want to inset this bottom part here, polygroup all region, and just do that. You could also do that with the flat island if you wanted to, and then QMesh, polygroup all, and then bridging two things, especially bridging stuff like, let's see. Let's go delete here. I like the bridging capability in ZBrush a little bit better. There's a lot of options you can do for this one as well. But this one's pretty easy. And then if I want to get rid of this one, just QMesh a single poly and just pop these through. So just deleting stuff is a lot easier. Get rid of this. Also, the split point here. And then it's like, okay, I want to QMesh polygroup island, pull this back, but then I want to take, let's hold down Alt as we do that. And then I want to take this thing here, QMesh polygroup island, hold down Control, pop this piece out. And now I've got this piece that'll fit exactly in there. If I want to just take these into a separate subtool, we go ahead and split that off. And then now again, we can hit D, and we have our dynamic properties already dialed in. If we want to change those dynamic properties, we can. And we can also go through here and just model insert single edge loop. And again, this isn't necessarily just for ZBrush, but you know, the inset polygroup all, we can inset both sides at the same time, which is nice. And now pop those in there. I mean, there's a ton of stuff in the ZModeler repertoire that's really nice. I'm not going to go over all of it. In fact, if you want to check out all the ZModeler functionality, Intro to ZBrush Part 3, and the first, ZModeler 14 through 20 is all ZModeler stuff. And there's a lot of fancier ways too. But really, even aside from just straight up box modeling, the ability in ZBrush for me to concept something out and then use ZRemesh, like and oh, that's another thing too. If you go to the let me see, live to highlights here, playlists, live stream highlights. You go all the way down to the bottom here, and there is a hard surface excerpt, and then this just goes through a bunch of different ways to do hard surface stuff, and slicing and clipping and ZRemesh. ZRemesh is probably the biggest thing. I would hate having to go to another program and having to be like, okay, I've got this basic shape here, and then I want to make a shape out of this, but make this mesh nice. All I got to do in ZBrush is, I mean, I can ZRemesh with groups on, but if I want to split this off and then go 0 mesh, half, data size down to 0. Now I've got new geometry. I can keep knocking this back, and now I have Q mesh, polygroup all. Go ahead and pop out a shell here, and I can also go through here and hold down Alt, and then pop these through, and then hit D, and then increase polygroup. Then it's like, okay, these edges are too sharp. That's when the whole crease level of 2, smooth selective of 3, we can try that, and then I'll knock back those creases a little bit, but I still have the ability to go through here and, you know, model this stuff in however I see fit. Also, I really like, we go through here, and we have a polygroup here, and you don't have to do it. You can hold down Alt and start painting, and then tap Shift and Alt just to kind of just toggle more polygroups here. The mesh fusion stuff, so go brush, insert, basic Boolean here. I like to use this one. So if we hit W and we steal this one, and I'm just going to take this top piece out. And then we're going to do Control Shift S to shrink, and then we'll delete that, brush, create, insert mesh new, and we'll go back to our, not our butt, this thing here. So now that we have a polygroup on here, and we have an open circle on the back, and as long as I don't have Dynamesh turned on, I can go ahead and have ZBrush figure out that interpolation for me. If I wanted to do smooth, just make sure, or if I don't want it to do smooth, turn smooth modifier off when you drag that on. There you go. So it'll go ahead and just figure out these edges for me. So when I hit D, it'll go ahead and do that. Of course, you're going to want to make sure that this thing is in all the way. So you can go through here and you could, oops, you know, make it flush. And also on a curved surface is a little bit more difficult, but oops, I'll go ahead and interpolate that for you. Or you can hold down Alt when you drag it out, and that'll push it in, and then it'll interpolate that as well. So now you have that mesh fusion built in. So you can do that. Of course, on a curved surface, you're going to have to, you know, use objects that are compatible with that. But that's another really good one I like to use in ZBrush. Format for alphas are PSD's 16-bit grayscale, and the resolution is as high as you can make it without making your performance terrible. Or is there no single value? Everything will be affected by the image of the alphas itself. No, you can use resolutions. Is important. Yeah, I don't tend to stream at 4K or anything like that. You guys don't need to see my face that well. What's the gun disassembling thing I've seen you use on Discord? Oh yeah, let me see if that's let me see. World. Do I even have Steam on here? Ugh, I don't have Steam on here. World of Guns is the reference file, or the reference game I use for weapon stuff. Let me type that out. World of Guns. That's a fun one. Is there a good way to emulate snap to vertex curve, etc. with ZModeler? It's one of the big things I miss when not using any traditional modeling programs. Snap to vertex curve. Moving stuff over. You can collapse to a vertex or curve, so you don't need Photoshop anymore. I don't think so, but I'd have to think about that one as well. Like all the snapping stuff, like snapping an object to a component and snapping to a curve and stuff, I don't really have a good answer for off the top of my head. That might be another one. Or those features, you know, you could suggest it to ZBrush if it's something you can't live without. That's something they could certainly add. It's just functionality, and really the thing with ZBrush is enable, you know, get that functionality, have that functionality work within the ZBrush workflow, so that you're not sitting there trying to you know, like if you throw something in the ZBrush and it's like, well, I'm in ZBrush mode, I'm doing all my cool ZBrush stuff, but now I've got to go pop open something over here and it doesn't fit within that ZBrush workflow. I think that's the harder thing, is to come up with a tool that's nice and fluid with the ZBrush. But if they can figure it out, they will certainly add it, especially if it's useful. Can we make a set of polygons planar in ZModeler similar to 3D Studio Max? Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that functionality is, but there's a lot of different ways to, let's go to initialize here. Like if I wanted to make these planar, you can use clip. Now they planar. Or if you want to clip them out to an angle, or if you want to clip them out first and then clip them back, you can flip that clip around. Or you can hit W, move your gizmo wherever you want, and then use scale, not rotate, scale. You can use the scale to just kind of scale them to planar, and now you can use rotate to do whatever you want. And now if we go over here to group by normals, you'll have a polygroup here, so then you'll be able to inset these as region, or inset, we can also do like a polygroup. Let's go ahead and do inset region. And then we can do QMesh. And then in here, we can, let's go ahead and duplicate this off. And now we can do polygroup checker, polygroup all. And then I want to just get rid of, oh, you know what, I can't do Control Shift shrink on an open border like that, but we can go to get rid of this. So here, I just want these inside faces basically. Delete hidden. And now we can do another inset, or we can do QMesh, all polygons, give it some thickness. On the back side here, we can do, actually we don't even need these two pieces here. Actually, we'll just use QMesh. QMesh, single poly, ramp, ramp. And now inset, polygroup all region, not region. Grab all these and then QMesh. Now if we hit D, we get our dynamic subdivisions on here. And we can also increase polygroup. And then we can turn this into a subtractive mesh with live Boolean. And now we can just poke holes. Although really, what I'd probably do is, once I get this, look at QMesh, single poly, I would probably use my nanomesh brush. So, so now I can hover over this one. We can do insert nanomesh with maybe a cylinder, insert nanomesh, polygroup all. And now you can just use these insert nanomeshes here. If this is what I like, I can go ahead and convert one to geo, or I can just do a BPR to geo. And then delete that. And now I can use this as a subtractive mesh. With live Boolean. All sorts of different ways to skin these cats. Cool. Question. How old are you? I am 36 years old. Get some grays coming out in my beard. How much time I spend to become a good CG artist? There's way better CG artists that are younger than I am. Way younger than I am. I think that's a good question. Practice and putting in the time. For me especially, I have to do everything over and over and over again to get even okay at something. Not even good, just like passable. So, even I've seen people who just pick up stuff immediately and they're just really good out of the gate. I think the more important thing is that once you get the techniques down, also staying fresh on design, which is something I never really was, because production art for the longest time was all about the technical capability and kind of if your job is to just move UVs around, like we talked about earlier, just doing UV shells, boy, you're really not going to be good at much else if you do that for 10 years. You know what I mean? And how valuable is that realistically from an art perspective? So staying ahead of the game on design and making cool stuff is definitely something I would suggest doing, because yeah, that's something that's going to be a little bit more important, I think, coming up once the tools get good. Cool. Alrighty, how are we doing on time? All right. I think we're good. I'm gonna call it a day. I will go ahead and oh, we got another thing here. Horn. How would you make a horn? So, I mean, the quickest way is if we go to brush, chisel creature. You can just make a horn with the vector displacement and just drag it out. That's what I would do. But you could, I would use Dynamesh to kind of pull it out in that shape, or use Z-Modeler to get the basic shape and kind of twist it a little bit. Probably Z-Modeler and kind of twist it around that shape. And then adding the ridges, that could be a surface noise thing too if you have UVs. There's a million different ways to kind of do that. So let's see. I guess we can do one real quick. So if I'm just looking at this, so if we have, let's take this thing. We don't need this anymore, so I'm going to go to initialize Q cube. Oh, come on. Fine. Delete lower. Q cube. Solo, and delete that. And then we take this here, and this looks like it's kind of flat, so I'm going to go ahead and reposition all this stuff here. And I guess we don't need X symmetry. So if we're going to do a twisting motion along here, let's also just simplify this thing. So we're going to go into Z-Modeler brush, insert single ledge loop, hold down Alt, and we'll simplify that out. So if you want to twist along, I guess we could just do that. Let's go ahead and scale this up, and then we need resolution for that, so we're going to insert multiple edge loops. And then you could, if we're just along the middle, you can just use the twist modifier. You can also use it in the gizmo, but we're going to deformation, twist. You can twist this thing up. Ooh, that's not going to be right. We need to twist along the Y. There we go. So you can twist like that. But that's not a very controlled twist. So, also, you can also use your gizmo here. I think there's a, you can do different, also you can do a twist deformer in here. But what I'd probably do is, for a more controlled twist, kind of move this and then just bridge them. And then you can also twist and taper though, so that might be kind of good. For example, W, and for this one we'll go ahead and twist along this axis. And then if I wanted to taper this, we say, okay, we want to accept that. And now I'm going to drop my gizmo down to the bottom here, and then we'll go to taper. So we can kind of taper that down thick to thin, like so. And then if I was a little bit more accurate with my polygroups here, it'd probably help. But what we could do is, let's go ahead and hit Control D to subdivide this. Actually, let's do group by normals, and then we'll crease polygroup. Or even better, let's go in here to our smooth. So we're going to do a crease level of 2, smooth subdiv of 3, actually crease level of 1. There we go. So if I now, let's do smooth subdiv of 1 here. trying to get a nice shape here so I can go ahead and apply these edges and delete lower. Just to get more resolution in here. If I want to clean this up a little bit, I can still go through here and insert a single edge loop and hold down Alt and kind of simplify these shapes as I see fit. But this is actually okay. So now that I can take all of these things, I can go through here and make separate polygroups for this. So insert, we'll do polygroup, polyloop, and then you can just go through here. Let's go ahead and make this obvious here. Or, I'm trying to think, every other one, let's see if we can do polygroup, point order. No, we want to do by 3 sides. I wish I had like a moto type selection so I could just do one selection and then have it just continue down the thing. When I did my insert multiple edge loops, it gave me separate polygroups, but I didn't take advantage of that because I was still trying to get my shape in here. But basically what you could do is you could polygroup every other one like this. And then let's make that a little bit more obvious actually. Tap Alt, there we go. So now we've got these, then you could go through here and you could Q-mesh these things out to make the bumps. You could also do a quick inset, polygroup all region, and you could inset this first, and then you could do a Q-mesh, and instead of Q-meshing out a ridge, just hold down Shift, and that'll kind of give you a little bump. And then for all these two, you could just switch this back to inset. You can keep those exact same properties, and then again, just Q-mesh, hold down Shift, and that'll give you that kind of ridged look, like so. Hit D to subdivide. But it's basically just like, you know, make your shape, and you could use snake hook for that. You could go through here with snake hook, and you could wrap the shape into whatever shape you want, and use Dynamesh as well. So you can Dynamesh this thing and get whatever weirdo shape you want, and go through here, and I would just do a quick sculpt of like what I wanted this horn to look like. Hit Control W. It's like, this is my basic horn shape. And then once I'm happy with this, I would go through and then just do a quick zero mesh to get nice lines along here. Let me see. And, you know, and I mean, you could just sculpt out the geometry too if you want to, just like standard brush. One thing you might notice is with the standard brush here, Z intensity up, and we'll go ahead and turn up our lazy radius here. So as we're using our standard brush, let me see if it does it for me. So I'm using standard brush to make this, and then as I go over here, was that fixed? Stroke. If your standard brush is kind of snapping to your last used point, go over here to stroke and change that lazy snap down to 0. Then you can just very quickly, you can go in here with Damien standard and just like standard brush and start just sculpting it out. That'll probably give you a little bit more control. I mean, for something organic like that, you don't probably need to do that. You can also use alphas if you have an alpha. I don't know what we do. Clone. We could make a quick alpha, drag rect. I mean, I guess we have this one in here. You can go through here and use these kind of alphas, or you can change that to a dot stroke with lazy mouse turned on, and we can rotate that alpha. And then we'll go ahead and also change that lazy step to like 1. So now you can just kind of drag an alpha with the bumps on it to get the look you want. Make a specific one for yours, for your horn and stuff. There's probably a bunch of different ways you could do this, is what I'm saying. You could box model it, you could zero mesh and box model it, you could just sculpt it, and then zero mesh and project. So. How do you create a realistic surface noise on a t-shirt? I think we went over this in the last stream, but if we wanted to make this thing you know what, let's just go ahead and do a quick zero mesh half. Okay, so if you want to turn this into a t-shirt, first thing you're probably going to want to do is give this thing UVs, so I'm just going to go over here to our Z plugin, and we'll do a quick UV master, It's not symmetrical. We don't have any polygroups. Work on clone, unwrap, flatten, perfect. Copy UVs, back to original, paste UVs. So now we've got this one here, and then you just got to go over here to the surface noise. And also, let's hit D to turn on dynamic subdivisions. And now when we go in here, you can bring in your own textile alpha to tile, or you can go to the noise plug and turn on like a weave maybe. And then we could go in here and we could do plugin scale. We want to use our UVs. We want to use noise plug. We don't want to mix basic noise. And we want to crank that strength up. Oh, we want to tile it down. And then strength. Turn off relative, maybe. There we go. So now we have surface noise. However, I would say doing this weave pattern in ZBrush is super destructive. So again, do your weave patterns in Substance Painter or Substance Designer and just tile instead of, because if you bake this out in ZBrush, it's going to be super destructive. Just do it in the texture. And actually, we went over that too in the, we even did it in the Sci-Fi Pistol series, I think. With our base meshes, although, you know what, probably it was the live stream full episodes here. I think it was a more recent one. Maybe it's this one. Yeah, we talk about doing, somewhere in here, we talk about doing like a fabric pattern and ooh, I don't remember where it is. Putting a fabric pattern on the gun. I wish Painter was working. I'd show you right now, but I have to go get my license figured out. Yeah, the fabric pattern, tiling in Painter, and then just, and in fact, even doing your stitches in Painter, so it's non-destructive too, because you can change those on the fly. Can I rotate each part along a curve model? For example, rotate every part 45 degrees and want to create a chain? Yeah, that's something you just build into the insert mesh brush. So we go to brush. Let's go to the comma key here, brush. Do we have the IMM? Chains, maybe. Yeah, however you want to set up your chains. You know, you can rotate them at 45-degree angles. You can do 3 of them. You can do brush insert. We got a bike chain in here. Trying to remember where, but I mean, how you want your chain to be set up is just how you set up your insert mesh brush. And then you can just drag it out, and if every part rotates 45 degrees, then just set it up, and then as you drag it out, every part will rotate 45 degrees. Pin tablet 1 by Wacom is fine for ZBrush. The only Wacom tablet I've ever used my whole entire career is the Wacom Intuos Pro. So I can't give you too much insight on how the other ones work, but maybe. Do you use the Dynamesh Master plugin? I don't, but I know a lot of people that do. I usually only use Dynamesh for really basic stuff. I don't need to go heavy into exact perfect Dynamesh settings, so usually just kind of dialing in the number I need is what I mostly need. I've installed it and then I've never used it, so I don't think it made the transition to 4R8, but yeah, a lot of people do. Grasshopper. I don't know what Grasshopper is. Is that a rendering thing? Not sure. So I guess I haven't. Let's see. Any of this stuff, so I'm going to delete all. So every part along a curve based on frame mesh from crease edge. Yes, you can frame anything you want. So like on a sphere, and you have, Let's go ahead and just do a creased edge on that one. And then you want to like stroke, curve functions, frame creased edges. You can just put a curve along here and then brush, curve, or brush insert. Is there not a chain in here? I could have sworn there was a chain in here. The chain with a base, that's not really what I'm looking for. You can make your own chain. You can actually just use this chain too as a starting point if you wanted to. But yeah, you can frame any number of things. And again, it all just depends on how you set your brush up. Still struggling with ZBrush Substance Painter workflow without an intermediate program. In your opinion, what is the best method without a program like Maya? You can use Blender. I'm going to be using Houdini coming up pretty soon. It's a lot nicer, a lot more options. Do you have any video about ZBrush plus Substance Designer workflow? Substance Designer I only use for, if you go to here, if you scroll down to the bottom-ish, there's a Substance Painter Quick Start Guide and there's a Substance Designer Quick Start Guide in here. This will walk you through Substance Designer. I don't generally go from ZBrush to Substance Designer that I can think of. But as far as like ZBrush, I mean, I usually go Substance Designer to Substance Painter to put all my Substance Designer functionality in Substance Painter, and then I go ZBrush to Substance Painter. And all of that, you can find that in the speed modeling and texturing. You can find it in Sci-Fi Pistol series. You can find it in Livestream Highlights where we do the robot stuff. Somewhere in here. Why can't I get all these thumbnails? Load them up, load them up. There's some robot stuff in here where we go from ZBrush to Substance Painter. Which is better for cartoon rendering, Keyshot or ZBrush? Probably ZBrush. We do both. I do toon rendering on my channel and Keyshot. In fact, we just did that here. We can talk a little bit about 4R7 and the stylized stuff. But if you want a lot of control, go to this playlist, ZBrush Guide Stylized Rendering. There's a lot more cool stuff you can do in here that Keyshot, you could probably set it up in Keyshot to do something similar, but it's super simple to just streaming. Oh, I guess we do have a little thing set up. Yeah, we've actually gone through this to turn off dynamic for solo there and turn off all these poly paints, and then we'll go ahead and grab materials. Whoops. I'm going to give him a little Batman look. Let's see. There we go. Stylized Batman. Or if you just want to do the pure, here's ink shader stuff. And of course you can also mix this with your BPR shadows as well as going into the material properties here and just dialing in like under the modifiers S2. You can crank this cavity transition up so you can get more detail. So when you render. And it also renders much faster than Keyshot, which is nice if you wanted to do a turntable. And you can also turn on S3 if you wanted more contrast and stuff. So you kind of mix the cavity transition. And also in S3, there's a lot of different properties you can play with to kind of get the look you want. Let's see what else we got in here. These are all kind of cool. But anyway, yeah, that playlist will give you a lot more different options and render options for you as far as stylized rendering stuff. Has your workflow for cleaning up Dynamesh models changed? Dynamesh models, yeah, I mean, well, it kind of depends on what you're asking. I use 15 or 16 techniques to clean up Dynamesh models. So out of those 15 or 16, nothing's really changed, I don't think. Plants, trees, and other props, maybe. I'm running out of time. I'm probably just going to head out pretty soon. But trees, did I ever do? I do trees. I have a video on trees I have at work. Plants, I would use fiber mesh. So if I want plants out of the top of this guy's head here, we go to fiber mesh. And it kind of depends on the plant too. If you want something very specific, you could sculpt it out. And that's just basic sculpting, just basic organic sculpting. Same thing for trees. It's not that difficult to do a Z-sphere tree and sculpt it out and do tiling noise and stuff like that. They do have some plants in here. We could see if some of these will work. Let's go into there you go. Got some plants. Let's change that length profile. And also, I mean, I guess we don't need that texture. Coverage, scale, root, scale, tip. We can fatten that out maybe. And also, I mean, if we BPR render this, it'll add the segments in here. But if you actually want real segments, you can go to, we can change the profile up to like 4, and it's going to yell at you. And then your segments, you can change that to like 11. And now you're getting real segments you can play with. And then accept. And now you have plants you can play with. BG. Groom it. And you can use fiber mesh to like put little flowers at the end of these things. Do grass with like little corn stalks or wheat stalks. But again, if you wanted to just like sculpt a tree, it's no different than just doing an organic sculpt. The only weird stuff comes in is if you want to do game production ready stuff, and it's like, okay, this has to be like a low res photogrammetry macro normal mixed with tiling material, tiling channels that you would want to add the detail in. Those channels have to tile, and then you would just do a bunch of tiling stuff. But all of that's taken care of in the texture. It wouldn't be a ZBrush thing. The ZBrush part's just the macro normal, basically. How I'd approach is separating parts that are one subtool with no poly groups. One subtool you want to separate into several parts so I can work in Substance Painter. That's basically what we do in the Sci-Fi Pistol series, is go through and we start with one object so we can do the color fill for our material IDs, and then we go into subtool split and we split it up based on animation purposes, like what's going to animate is going to get split up, and then we go in here and throw it into Painter and bake it. And then we bake all these parts, all the split parts separately, because we don't want AO occlusion or stuff like that, and normal errors. Isn't speed tree better for modeling trees? Yeah, if you've got a tool that just makes trees, then yeah, absolutely, just make trees. But as far as like ZBrush trees, let's have to sculpt a tree. Do you have any video on a game res trees made in ZBrush? No, I try not to do environments if I can help it, especially trees. They bore the hell out of me. I think I made a palm tree for one of the Call of Duty games, if I remember correctly. And it was meh. Send the models from ZBrush to Keyshot with the same view. Ooh, that's a good one. That I don't know. I'd have to eyeball. I'd probably just eyeball it. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. Alrighty. Well, it's time for me to do a quick workout before having to go to work real quick. So, thanks everybody for showing up. Hope that helped. And I'm going to try to get better about getting these on the live stream highlights so it's a little bit easier to navigate, so I don't have to be like, go to live stream episode 32 and go to an hour in and then you can see when I talk about this. So this weekend maybe I'm going to try and separate that stuff out. But in the meantime, you know, check all that stuff out, and whoops. Let me see if I can pull up OBS here so I can get out of here, stop streaming. There we go. Anyway, thanks everybody for showing up, and talk to you guys next week.